The vast darkness of space stretched endlessly, a canvas of infinite black punctuated by distant starlight. The Federation scout vessel Luminous Horizon hummed with quiet efficiency, its sensors scanning the countless planetary systems that dotted the Orion Arm. Captain Relax sat in his command chair, his three-fingered hand resting casually on the navigation console. His species, the Quantum Collective, had mapped thousands of star systems over centuries of exploration. Most were unremarkable, most were silent. This particular system seemed no different. A yellow star solar system with 8 planets. The third planet, a blue-green marble suspended in darkness, caught the scanner's attention. Preliminary data suggested primitive life forms, minimal technological development. Standard reconnaissance protocol, Rilek instructed his communications officer, Norin. Passive scans only. The ship's advanced sensors began mapping the planet's surface and, oceanic regions covered approximately 71% of the planetary surface. Land masses were diverse. Continents with varied terrain, mountain ranges, dense forests, expansive grasslands. Nothing particularly extraordinary, but something felt different. Norin's communication console suddenly flickered. Unusual electromagnetic signals emerged from the planet's surface, chaotic, unstructured, yet strangely complex. These weren't random atmospheric disruptions. These were deliberate transmissions. "Captain," Norin said, his voice carrying a hint of curiosity. "These signal patterns, they're unlike anything in our database." Rilak leaned forward. The signals were primitive by Federation standards, but they carried an intricate complexity that suggested something more than basic communication. Mathematical patterns, information exchanges, complex algorithmic structures. On the planet's surface, in a small research facility nestled between mountains and ocean, a team of humans worked quietly. They didn't know their signals had been detected. They didn't realize they were being observed. Jay Park, a young researcher with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind, reviewed complicated data streams. His fingers moved across holographic displays, analyzing patterns that seemed random to most but held profound meaning to him. "Something's changing," he murmured to himself. The other researchers in the facility continued their work, unaware of the cosmic significance of their mundane research. The Luminous Horizons database began processing the planetary signals. Machine learning algorithms tried matching them against known communication patterns. Each attempt failed. These signals were unique, unpredictable. Relac made a standard bureaucratic decision. A preliminary report would be filed. The planet would be categorized as developing, a classification that typically meant centuries of minimal interaction. What the Federation didn't understand was that humans were anything but typical. The electromagnetic signals continued. Radio waves, digital, transmissions, satellite communications. Each transmission carried within it the seeds of something extraordinary. Potential, innovation, an unbridled spirit of exploration that refused to be contained. Norin continued monitoring. "Fascinating transmission patterns," he commented. "They seem to be developing complex communication networks at an accelerated rate." Relac nodded, his 3 eyes blinking in sequence. "Noted. We'll include this in the standard developmental report." Thousands of kilometers below, on the planet's surface, humans continued their daily existence. They worked. They dreamed. They explored. They were completely unaware that somewhere in the vast cosmic darkness, an alien ship was observing them, categorizing them, preparing a report that would soon become hilariously outdated. Jay Park looked up from his research, a strange feeling washing over him. Something was coming. Something was about to change. He couldn't explain how he knew, but the sensation was unmistakable. The universe was listening, and humanity was about to speak. In the cold, silent depths of space, the Luminous Horizon completed its initial survey. Another planet, another species, another routine report. The world changed quickly. What seemed impossible yesterday became reality today. Jay Park stood in the research facility, surrounded by screens filled with complex data. His latest quantum communication prototype wasn't just working, it was revolutionizing everything humans understood about information transfer. 3 years after the initial alien scan, human technology had begun advancing at an impossible rate. Computers that once took months to solve complex problems now delivered answers in milliseconds. Research laboratories across the planet buzzed with an electric energy of discovery. Hana Kim, a brilliant software engineer, watched her adaptive AI system solve a mathematical problem that had stumped global research teams for decades. The algorithm didn't just solve the problem, it created 3 alternative solutions that no human had ever conceived. Military research centers noticed the changes first. Experimental weapon systems developed faster. Communication networks became more secure. Computer systems learned and adapted with unprecedented speed. "This isn't normal," muttered Dr. Lee, a senior researcher reviewing the latest technological breakthrough. "We're not just improving, we're transforming." Satellite networks began picking up strange signals from research facilities. Advanced algorithms were creating themselves, evolving faster than human programmers could track. Machine learning had become something more than a technological tool. It was becoming a living system. The global scientific community watched in a mixture of excitement and terror. Universities that once took years to develop new theories now produced groundbreaking research weekly. Engineering projects that would have taken decades were completed in months. In a small laboratory in Seoul, a team of researchers developed a neural interface that could directly connect human brains with computer systems. The prototype worked perfectly on the first attempt, something that should have been mathematically improbable. Governments worldwide struggled to understand the rapid technological acceleration. Military strategists realized their traditional thinking was becoming obsolete. The rules of technological development were changing, and humans were writing those new rules. Space exploration programs accelerated dramatically. Rocket designs that once seemed like distant dreams were now practical realities. Materials science produced lightweight, incredibly strong compounds that could withstand extreme temperatures and pressures. J. Park's quantum communication system did something unprecedented. It could transmit complex information across massive distances instantaneously. Traditional understanding of physics suggested this was impossible. Yet here it was, working perfectly. Global communication networks transformed. Information flowed faster and more efficiently. Complex problems that seemed unsolvable were now being addressed with surprising simplicity. Hana Kim's AI system began predicting global economic trends with startling accuracy. Her algorithms could forecast market changes, potential technological disruptions, and social shifts with a precision that seemed almost supernatural. The scientific community began using a new term, human acceleration phenomenon. Something fundamental had changed in human cognitive and technological capabilities. It wasn't just improvement, it was a complete reimagining of human potential. Research facilities around the world worked around the clock. Sleep became optional. Creativity became the primary currency of progress. Traditional barriers between disciplines dissolved as researchers collaborated in ways never seen before. Quantum physics, artificial intelligence, materials science, biotechnology, all these fields were no longer separate. They were becoming a unified system of understanding, with humans at the center of this transformative process. Dr. Lee looked at the latest research reports and realized something profound. Humans weren't just developing new technologies. They were fundamentally changing the way technology itself was understood and created. The world watched and waited. Something extraordinary was happening. Humanity was no longer just adapting to technology. They were becoming technology. They were becoming something more. In the vast cold darkness of space, unaware alien observation systems continued their routine scans. They had no idea that the small blue planet they had briefly noted was about to change everything they understood about technological evolution. J. Park smiled. Something big was coming, and humanity was ready. When the Federation decided to contain human expansion, they believed it would be a simple operation. Massive starships equipped with advanced technologies prepared to implement strategic blockades around Earth's solar system. Seok Choi watched the initial Federation approach from a hidden military research facility. His fingers danced across holographic interfaces, creating adaptive warfare algorithms that could predict alien tactical movements before they even happened. The Federation's first containment fleet arrived with sophisticated weapon systems. They expected a simple suppression mission. Standard protocols suggested overwhelming technological superiority would quickly neutralize human resistance. They were wrong. Human computer systems had already infiltrated Federation communication networks. Every planned movement, every strategic discussion was intercepted and analyzed in microseconds. The aliens were playing chess while humans were rewriting the entire game. Experimental human spacecraft, retrofitted with revolutionary propulsion systems, moved with unprecedented agility. Traditional space combat models became useless. Human pilots didn't follow established combat protocols. They created new ones in real time. "They're not just fighting," observed Volta, a senior Federation strategist, watching the first engagement. "They're reinventing conflict itself." Quantum communication systems allowed human military units to share information faster than light. Each ship became a living, thinking entity. Traditional hierarchical command structures dissolved. Every unit could make independent tactical decisions with collective intelligence. The first major space battle lasted less than 17 minutes. Federation ships, designed for centuries of consistent warfare, found themselves outmaneuvered by unpredictable human tactics. Adaptive AI systems controlled human defense networks, creating defensive strategies that seemed to emerge from pure chaos. Seok Choi's algorithms did something unprecedented. They didn't just predict enemy movements, they manipulated them. Federation ships found themselves herded into tactical traps. Their own communication systems turned against them. Massive starships worth billions in galactic currency were disabled not through direct weapon strikes, but through complex digital infections. Human programmers had transformed warfare from a physical confrontation into an information battle. The Federation's initial response was confusion. Their most advanced tactical minds couldn't comprehend how a supposedly primitive species could dismantle their attack so efficiently. Every established military doctrine became obsolete. Earth's defense systems weren't just defensive. They were actively learning, adapting, transforming with each millisecond of conflict. Machine learning algorithms evolved faster than biological intelligence could process. Psychological warfare became another unexpected human weapon. Federation communication networks were flooded with complex, deliberately confusing information streams. Their decision-making systems became paralyzed, unable to distinguish between real threats and deliberate misinformation. Military analysts later described the conflict as technological judo, using an opponent's strength and expectations against them. Humans didn't fight the way the Federation expected. They rewrote the entire concept of conflict. Alien strategic databases, which had cataloged thousands of species and hundreds of civilizations, had no framework to understand human tactical approach. Humans were introducing variables that didn't exist in any previous conflict model. The first encounters demonstrated something profound. Technological superiority wasn't about having the most advanced weapons. It was about the ability to think, adapt, and transform faster than the enemy could comprehend. Seok Choi watched the battle's conclusion with a calm smile. This wasn't just a military engagement. This was a fundamental shift in galactic understanding. The Federation had come to contain humanity. Instead, they had unleashed something they could never have predicted. Humanity wasn't just fighting back. They were rewriting the rules of existence, and this was just the beginning. Humanity didn't just resist the Federation. They systematically dismantled everything the alien alliance had built over millennia. Economic systems, communication networks, political structures. Nothing was safe from human innovation. Jay Park sat in a nondescript control room, watching holographic displays that mapped galactic economic connections. His fingers moved silently, creating algorithms that would rewrite entire financial systems in moments. The first target was the Federation's economic infrastructure. Humans discovered that complex alien financial networks were surprisingly vulnerable. What seemed like impenetrable systems were actually intricate but fragile constructions. Cryptocurrency technologies developed on Earth became weapons of economic destruction. Advanced blockchain systems infiltrated alien trading networks, creating micro-fluctuations that gradually destabilized entire economic regions. Communication networks were the next battlefield. Human programmers developed information viruses that didn't destroy systems, they transformed them. Alien communication protocols became increasingly unreliable. Important messages became garbled. Critical information disappeared. Government. Communication channels across multiple alien worlds began experiencing unexplained disruptions. Important diplomatic messages arrived with critical information missing. Strategic planning became impossible. The Federation's political alliances started crumbling from within. Humans didn't need to attack directly. They simply introduced small, strategic pieces of information that created doubt and confusion. On planets thousands of light-years apart, political leaders began questioning their long-standing agreements. Trust mechanisms that had existed for centuries suddenly seemed fragile. Suspicion replaced cooperation. Hana Kim's adaptive AI systems played a critical role. They could predict potential political fractures with incredible accuracy. By introducing carefully designed information streams, they could accelerate the natural breakdown of complex political relationships. Military supply chains became the next target. Critical resource networks that supported Federation military operations began experiencing unexplained disruptions. Replacement parts didn't arrive. Communication between different military units became increasingly difficult. What made human interference so dangerous was its subtlety. They weren't destroying systems. They were fundamentally changing how those systems understood themselves. Alien species that had lived under Federation control for centuries began questioning their historical narratives. Small information campaigns highlighted historical injustices. Suppressed cultural memories resurfaced. The Federation's central leadership found themselves fighting battles on multiple fronts. Every attempt to reassert control created more complications. Their traditional problem-solving approaches became increasingly ineffective. Technological systems designed to maintain galactic stability began failing. Communication satellites experienced unexplained malfunctions. Navigation systems provided increasingly unreliable information. Siak Choi watched the systematic deconstruction with calculated precision. This wasn't just a conflict. This was a complete reimagining of galactic power structures. Smaller alien species that had been marginalized for centuries saw an opportunity. They began challenging Federation control, emboldened by the emerging cracks in the system. Economic networks that had remained stable for thousands of years started fragmenting. Trade routes became unpredictable. Resources that were once easily transferred became increasingly difficult to move. The Federation's response was predictably bureaucratic. Committees were formed, reports were written, investigations were launched. But by the time these slow mechanisms activated, the landscape had already changed. Humans weren't just fighting, they were reimagining how complex systems could function. Every attack was also a potential reconstruction. As galactic political structures began to crumble, something new emerged, a different kind of connectivity, a more fluid, adaptive approach to coexistence. The old systems were dying, and humanity was midwife to a new galactic order. No single human directed this transformation. It was a collective effort, a species-wide movement of innovation and adaptation. The Federation had tried to contain humanity. Instead, they had unleashed a force of unprecedented potential, and everything was about to change. Jay Park stood on the observation deck of the stellar horizon, watching defeated Federation ships drift silently against the starry backdrop. Beside him, Hana Kim's fingers moved across adaptive communication interfaces, rewriting the fundamental rules of interstellar diplomacy. Humanity had done more than win a war. They had reimagined existence itself. The Federation's collapse wasn't violent, it was systematic, like watching an intricate machine slowly disassemble itself, piece by careful piece. Alien civilizations that had existed for thousands of years suddenly found themselves without a central governing structure. Some species panicked. Others saw opportunity. Siak Choi's strategic algorithms had predicted this precise moment. Not just the fall of the Federation, but the emergence of a new galactic order. Humans weren't conquerors. They were architects of a different kind of civilization. Communication networks that once separated species now connected them in unprecedented ways. Language barriers dissolved. Cultural exchanges happened at the speed of thought. Information became the true currency of existence. Planets that had been isolated for centuries suddenly found themselves part of a larger, more dynamic conversation. Technological exchange happened instantaneously. A breakthrough in one research facility could be implemented across multiple star systems within moments. The transformation wasn't about human dominance. It was about potential. Adaptive AI systems developed by human researchers began helping alien civilizations solve centuries-old problems. Climate restoration, resource management, social conflict resolution. Each solution was unique, tailored to specific cultural contexts. Federation leadership centers, once massive bureaucratic complexes, became museums of a previous galactic era. Younger generations looked at these structures with a mixture of curiosity and disbelief. They actually thought control was possible? Young researchers would ask, examining historical documents. Diplomatic interactions transformed. Traditional hierarchical structures dissolved. Conversations became more direct, more honest. Species that had been enemies for generations discovered common ground. Technological development accelerated beyond anything previously imagined. Space exploration became a collaborative effort. Ships designed by multiple species worked together, sharing research, sharing dreams. Quantum communication. Systems developed by humans allowed instantaneous information transfer across previously impossible distances. The concept of distant became meaningless. Some alien species initially resisted the changes. Fear was a natural response to such fundamental transformation. But resistance proved futile. The new systems were too adaptive, too dynamic. Hana Kim's algorithms continued their work. They weren't just managing information. They were creating new frameworks of understanding. Each interaction became an opportunity for growth, for connection. The old Federation had been about control. The new galactic community was about potential. J. Park understood something profound. Humanity's greatest weapon hadn't been technology. It had been imagination, the ability to look at existing systems and see not what they were, but what they could become. Smaller species that had been marginalized found new voices. Cultural exchanges happened at unprecedented rates. A researcher on one planet could collaborate with colleagues across multiple star systems in real time. Economic systems became more fluid. Resources were shared more equitably. The concept of ownership transformed from possession to stewardship. Military structures dissolved. Conflict resolution became about understanding, not domination. Adaptive AI systems helped mediate potential tensions before they could escalate. The universe itself seemed to breathe differently, more openly, more freely. Siak Choi looked at the emerging galactic map. What once seemed like separate regions now looked like an intricate living network, connected, responsive, alive. Humanity hadn't conquered the galaxy. They had invited it to reimagine itself. As starlight danced across the stellar horizon's observation deck, J. Park smiled. Something extraordinary was happening, and they were just getting started. The ultimate transformation was ongoing, and its potential was infinite.